So today we're going to check out the third part to my breakdown of my Symphony, Theseus, and the Minotaur. If you haven't seen the first two videos, if you're on YouTube, there's a playlist that I have with the previous two breakdowns of the first and second movements and the full symphony itself, so you can listen to it and reference it however you like. The full unedited version of this is going to be up on Patreon for both score and sketch level patrons, and once all these videos are up, score level patrons will have access to the score study version of this PDF that I'm working with now. That'll be uploaded after all the videos are done. So today we're checking out movement 3, the Minotaur. This is one of my favorite movements. There's a lot of material in here that I think orchestrationally you might get a lot out of, and just a lot of effects and motivic writing that I employ when I'm trying to work on this. So to start, the Minotaur, firstly, I have this little instruction, monstrous. So in the story, the Minotaur is the big, giant, half-man, half-bull monster that Theseus has to defeat. So in my head, I wanted this movement to be sort of like an action scene. Like we could watch this on a screen and have different moments where Theseus is fighting the monster or ducking away or hiding or, you know, all sorts of things. So my thinking behind writing this was sort of like dramatic in that way. And I'll kind of say what I was thinking was happening in the story during a lot of these sections. Okay, so we open with a soft timpani roll, a soft tremolo in the basses, and you can see that I have the basses divisi here. So I have the first half and the second half. Second half is doing the exact same thing that the timpani is doing. The E is typically the lowest note on the double basses. If they have a C extension, then they would be able to play the C below this E, but a standard double bass only goes down to a low E. So assuming that the basses that are playing have a standard bass, this is the lowest note. It's a very soft tremolo. Now the first double basses are playing this figure, so they're holding the same note in E, and then they glissando up to this note and back down to the E. They glissando at the same time that this figure is happening in a bunch of low instruments. So it's just a sort of low run. In my head, I'm trying to get this to sound like a rumble of something. And so the double basses are playing this, like just boom. So we have a few instruments playing that figure at the beginning. The cellos, which is up here. A piano playing an octave lower, or where the basses are doing it. A contrabassoon in the same octave. And the bass clarinet in the same octave as the cellos. When I showed this to my teacher, he was like, this is exactly the same combination I would have done if I were doing something like this. So in my head, what I was going for was something, I notated very softly, pianissimo. On a contrabassoon that low, it's not gonna come out pianissimo. It's gonna be like sort of barky. I just want the player to try and get it as soft as possible. I know it's not gonna be a true pianissimo. It's gonna be like a harsh, bitey. Same with the bass clarinet. The bass clarinet introduces some really interesting harmonics that I think makes it slightly brighter along with the contrabassoon. And that was my thinking as well with the piano in this low, low, low octave. And I didn't double it an octave higher. So I didn't have the piano do this. I just have it do this. Just in the low octave. Again, because on a typical grand piano, those low notes just have a lot of higher harmonics that I wanted in there in the sound. And then we have this subtle figure in the bass drum playing this rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. Then a few more blurs. Boom. For the character or representing the Minotaur itself, I never wrote a particular theme for it. Like there's no 8-bar melody that represents the Minotaur. Instead, what I did was came up with various motifs that I put together in different ways to represent the Minotaur. One of them being this sort of low, blurry figure. In my head, I'm imagining Theseus is entering the chamber in the middle of the labyrinth where the Minotaur lives, and the Minotaur is asleep and is snoring monstrously. And this right here is another motif. So here's what I'll do. Each time we come across a motif that represents the Minotaur, including all the variations, I'm going to circle it with purple. So here's motif number 1. Here's motif number 2. This motif is not melodic. It's just rhythmic. So every time we hear that, it sort of represents the Minotaur in this movement. Just the simple rhythm. And there's a little bit of that with the bass drum. Now, after this whole section, here is when the Minotaur wakes up. And we hear this figure. This is almost like the first 3 notes of the Labyrinth theme. But instead of that, we hear it like this. Low and menacing. And then we have high woodwinds and strings play this run until we get to this little theme. So what we have in essence is this. So it's this, that's the same motif as just slightly in a new variation. So those 3 notes, and that's something that recurs again and again. So here's the next motif. Now, I have written the trumpets playing the same figure. In the recording, in the final recording of the Dow Village Symphony Orchestra playing this, because it's a virtual ensemble, we had the advantage of being able to record the 3 trumpets playing together. It was all in one go, however. So the only take we have of the trumpets, or the only takes we have of the trumpets playing this figure, they were just unusable. I wasn't there to be able to direct the players or anything like that, so it's nobody's fault. But the violins are playing this really high up, second violins play it an octave lower, flutes are playing this high, piccolo, oboes are playing it up there, clarinets are playing it up there, so it's really bright. This is all to color the sound of the trumpets. So without the trumpets in the recording, it's missing half of its mass. But oh well. So let me just play for you the beginning portion and you'll get a sense for all of those moments that I talked about. Here it is. So that moment with the run is the Minotaur fully awake, maybe roaring or something, and Theseus is about to battle him. All right, we get to this new section. We're at a faster tempo, and we start with this percussion fill before we get into the tonal stuff. Now, this figure, a new sort of figure, this is like another motif that I'm using to represent the Minotaur. Bum, 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 bum. And we have some strings driving, accenting on those beats. And then I ask the timpani player play with staccatissimo mallets. Staccatissimo mallets are basically really hard mallets. They don't necessarily have to be like super hard, like made out of wood or something, but they're very hard, generally small. And then we have this sort of John Williams-y moment, being doubled by high woodwinds, flutes in this case. Could have doubled that with oboes, I probably should have. And then this motif in the trombones and horns. Those 3 notes, the same motif. So here we go with the same motif again. Remember that rhythm, bum, 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 bum. It's appeared again now with just a few notes sort of as an answer to the melody. So we have bum, 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 bum. As we go through this, you'll see that motif after motif just recurs and recurs and recurs. This was a great exercise in figuring out how to write action music with the themes of the characters in this. In this case, I'm using the same material over and over and over again, repurposing it, throwing in variations and whatnot. The trumpets right here, all three, are playing Theseus' theme. So if you remember, Theseus' theme goes... We don't hear Theseus' theme at all in this movement in its full glory. We do hear quotes of it though, and that's what this moment is. But it's never quite right. It's always in the context of the Minotaur's surrounding sort of things. Also, these little runs are in between the gaps of that theme. We have right here this symbol over the basses and the cellos. That symbol is a Bartok pizzicato or a snap pizzicato. Basically, instead of plucking the string itself, they lift the string and let it go, and the string slaps the fingerboard. And if you have it on a specific pitch, it'll give you a little bit of tone, but it's just a really cool, intense effect. For the violins, here I instruct them to start on an F, which is the first note on the highest string. And what I want them to do is go up as high as they possibly can to any note that is as like high as possible. So this is presumably on the E string, hold an F, and then over the course of an eighth note, just like give me something. Sort of similar thing for the harp. Gliss really quickly on that upbeat. There's this little like downward run in the high woodwinds. Percussion, cross stick shots. A cross stick shot is when a snare drummer places a stick, part of it placed on the head, part of it placed on the rim, and you hit the stick with your other stick and it gives you a shot sound. This, if you haven't noticed throughout all of these, in the strings, for example, this is that same motif from the beginning, just in a disguised in a new way that's really sort of different. So this is all variation. Isn't that cool? Okay, this next section, more motif. Da, 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 da. Then again, da, 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 da. That right there is just, instead of going down, minor third goes up, minor third. Horns are all playing it. This is just for impact. Brum, 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 brum. Same with the, now we have this constant 16th note motor going on, and the trumpets are playing it too. Actually, third trumpet here is playing the melody with the horns. The trumpet playing that low kind of gives it sort of like this nasty quality of a tone that's not as like controlled, but it's just blatty almost. Now, I wanted the 16 notes in the trumpets, but instead of giving one trumpet until they keel over, this figure is being passed back and forth between the first and second trumpet. You can see Stravinsky do this kind of thing in Rider Spring. I, now at letter I is sort of like a percussion section. This right here is, we have this different feel section. Like it feels like the tempo's changed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But it's just a rhythm at the same tempo that we were at. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we have just these chords. Let's see what that chord is. Yeah, just crunchy chords, just to like give us, you know, that sense of that we might be in trouble, that we might be deleted by this fearsome monster. So a lot of this is just chaos. I wasn't thinking hard about what the harmony is during this moment or whatever. If it sounded chaotic, then I left it in. Then we get into a new section which is very similar to stuff that we had previously. we get to more driving, and then surprise, surprise, more motifs. This is from earlier. Now we go back to this section of triplets, and then the entire time the brass right here is playing this figure that sort of gets us from, that is getting us to this really big moment. Now, it's worth mentioning, even though on the page it looks like there are a million instruments playing the triplets and only a few instruments playing this figure, all of the brass playing unison, or yeah, I think all of this is unison. Unison, 3 trumpets, 4 horns, 2 trombones is going to be a massive, massive sound that'll cut. So I need everybody playing the background figure just to balance against all of the brass. I should have added it to the piano, to the harp. I should have given everybody that figure, but I didn't. I'm saving the low register, however, for this next section. Also want to point out that during this, because it's constant figuration, and I don't want to have the players try to have to figure all this out, I wrote in little rests that sort of are shared. No one will notice in actual performance, but these are just moments for flute 1, flute 2 to take a breath in particular moments. Now at letter M, this is the climax of the entire thing. I have this crazy figure in the woodwinds, this loud tremolo in the violins, this crazy chromatic figure in the low strings, just nonsense. Then the 3 trumpets and the 2 trombones are playing Theseus' theme. And then this you think is sort of going to be doing the same thing, da 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 da, and then at the last moment, da da da, which is the Minotaur's theme, da da da, Minotaur's theme variation, until we get to this section of low notes with 3 fortes or fortissimo, which to me is the loudest moment in the entire symphony. I'm the kind of composer who my sort of range in terms of dynamics is from pianissimo to fortissimo. I stay within that range. If I want something to be really loud, I do fortissimo. So that means when I do something like fortissimo, 3 Fs, it's incredibly dramatic, at least in my... I know there are composers out there who write 3 Fs just for someone playing like loud in general. I'm not like that. Overall, in general, this for me was a fantastic exercise in motivic variation. Writing one little set of notes and maybe coming up with a few others and transforming it in different ways across the entire orchestra. Nearly every page has a variation of something that had been established. So with all that being said, I'm going to end it right here. Thanks so much for checking this out. Stay tuned for the last part of this series while I'll be going over the 4th movement. If you're a score level member, then you'll get access to the PDF version of this so you can check it out for yourself. And if you're interested in doing that, then go ahead and check it out. Thanks so much for watching. As always, take care.